This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel, youtube.com, District of Summerland. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. As council chamber remains closed to the public, members of the public are encouraged to register in advance of the meeting to speak to council. Please contact corporate officer at summerland.ca to be added to the speakers list for the public comment opportunities found under items 6.0 and 8.0. Those who have not registered to speak in advance may call 250-404-4052 during the live meeting to be added to the speakers list for items 6 and or 8. Corporate officer, are there any late items?
There are none, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Could I have somebody bring forward approval of the agenda, please? Councillor Holmes, Councillor Van Elfen. All in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the minutes from the regular afternoon council meeting of July the 27th. Any changes? Okay, good. Councillor Barkowal and Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? Thank you. And moving right on to item 5, the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome David Hall, the Executive Director, to the podium. Welcome, David.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council, and City staff. It's nice to see everybody in person as opposed to video conferencing. So, Karen said I only have 45 to 50 minutes today, so I'll make this as quick as I can. So, I've got a few slides. I'm going to give you an update of where we've been at in 2020, which is a bit of a rather strange year, to put it mildly, and where we're looking to work with the district going forward. I'll skip through the first number of slides fairly quickly, assuming that everyone's had a chance to read through the agenda
Trainer.
Hi, David. I'm just wondering, is the chamber doing any kind of data collection this summer or encouraging business members to do that, particularly in the tourism industry, to see who is coming, because there are tourists still coming, I think they're mostly coming from BC, just to kind of see what, what travel looks like this summer and how you can maybe cater to those same people next year if we're not going to get international tourists.
So, we are one of three tourism organizations in the valley that work with Dakota on a program they have. We're probably on a 44 on the pond on your list, but to TELUS and Veronix, they track movement of people by cell phones. Any stop longer than 15 minutes, where you entered the valley, where you left the valley, with a 3-digit first part of your postal code, so we know you came from this section of Surrey, and you back on street to that section of Surrey, you came in Highway 3, you stopped here, you're an hour and a half to Summerland middle of the day, and the car stayed overnight in West Kelowna after an hour kind of thing. So we have a really good handle on that data. I find it a bit rubbish, to be honest, but so that part we do, and tourism, we get the vast majority of the numbers come from BC and Alberta. That's 75, 80% of the numbers. When it comes to spending, though, when you're coming from the Czech Republic to visit BC, this is probably triple the lifetime. So you're spending, say, a couple of $300-$500 a day, whereas two people in a camper now are spending $150. So international tourism will be missed. Probably half. Yeah, to answer your question, we've got great data on who's coming, where they're staying at, and that's some of the impetus for the South River on the tourism alliance, is to, we know they're coming from, we know they're going, we're saying, you come up and connect with, turn south, you come up Highway 3, don't just stop at Surrey. Business-wise, the business perspective survey that Anthony and I started, we do prior to non-tourism as well, try to gather that. Becoming more and more evident over the last few years that data really is king. You've got to know the kind of sort of system and guess what you think is going on.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. I just have a question regarding the business perspective survey, and I understand why it had to stop during when the pandemic hit, but is it not possible to carry it out now with, I'm not sure how many people are involved in respect to this business survey.
So, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong. So with Anthony and I, we thought it was best to have the two senior staff people from each organization go out. And our plan was to first put out to, really like the business. We got quite a number of sponsors. We started going out every Wednesday morning was our morning out together. And we had a fairly long list lined up. And our plan was after, for the time and resources, just to try to, and then move it to online. We thought the in-face person, and I guess the answer to the question is it just depends how the pandemic plays out. Certainly with past is something we can, and something not to discuss. It's always going to go into online after summer portion. So how we exactly look at the details, how we look at that, but we're getting a better handle on mass and social distancing. And I think the personal visit is far more effective, far more powerful than online. I've said that I've had a long life, Nancy's quite young yet, so.
Could I just ask a follow-up question to yours, Councillor Holmes? I think the target was about 80 in-person visits. And how many did you get done? About a tenth of those before COVID?
6, 8, 10, something like that.
Okay.
And then literally, we had in the week, everything in Japan was, we had 2 nights, that night, and it was quite interesting because a couple things. So unlike a business walk where there's quite a bit of a forum, we had a forum, create some meetings, but a lot of it was interactive chit chat. We thought, half an hour, 40 minutes might be enough, and each one was at least an hour, if not 2 at least. And it was good input. And I think a lot of it people have to go. Some of the chambers in the district that come around to my place, wasn't that nice? And we didn't have anybody ranting or raving or all mad and upset enough, but it was a good opportunity to get a feel for their business. And if it would have carried on, I was quite enjoying it with all these.
So I guess asking the same question that Councillor Holmes does, just asked, what about the consideration to do in person again now that things have, restrictions have been lifted somewhat and, you know, respect the wearing of masks?
Oh, I'm keen.
I know that you're.
Let's see what happens. No, I'm keen. I guess I'm old school. I like that face-to-face, looks in the eye and, have a talk with people, chat with them. It's far more effective than face-to-computer survey.
Yes, I agree. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Carlson?
Sorry for being late to your presentation. I was just wondering, there's a slide about working with some local service organizations and supporting and looking at social enterprise agencies, business-specific resiliency programs, and then supporting local businesses recovering from the crisis. I think that's all extremely important, and there's great value to doing that. I just want to also remind perhaps the Chamber that all of the local farms have no obligation to have a business license to be part of the Chamber of Commerce, but they also are impacted by this pandemic, and I think it would be really valuable if somehow, whether it's through the district or the Chamber, we can make sure that we, in moving forward and seeing where our community is at, remember to ask the same questions to some of the local farmers and food producers in our community.
Well, I might ask you to give me a hand. So, as we all know, the GDP in Summerland agriculture, fermentation is by far the biggest we have. You will not be a little harder to find a list of all the farmers, orchards. I'm serious. I've scoured all sorts of different government websites, associations, and that. I've started to get a list together for you, right? And when I drive by some big, maybe somewhere, I'm like, hey, never done before. And we'll look them up and, oh, there's a quiet farm just doing their thing and don't do all the attention to that. I may call you to give me a hand, but start to cobble this together. It's surprisingly difficult. I thought BC Agriculture would just say, here's the list.
It is really difficult, and that's one of the things about being a farmer, I think. A lot of these folks are rather like being solitary. But yeah, there's definitely some ways of finding out, even if it happens to be through, Facebook. There's some great Summerland local food Facebook pages right now, too. So.
Yeah, right. And we're looking at building a lot of that database and all of it. Because, yeah, I never thought it'd be so hard to find all the farmers, but it is. Of course, we just take multiple business licenses. I'm just saying ideas.
Other questions? Okay, I have a couple more. Again, following up on what Councillor Carlson was just asking, not specifically about the agriculture industries, but when you said supporting recovery of nonprofit and social enterprises, can you tell me a little bit more what you mean by that?
So we haven't got deep into how this will look. Again, it's no good just me sitting by myself in my office dreaming up ideas. I need input in that. Summer's not the best of time, but when you're looking at the thrift stores and community charities they support and food bank and different groups like that, Sunday markets and all these things that are part of the fabric of our community. Without them, what are we going to do? A bunch of houses and people, right? So we need all those different pieces to make our community go. And I've always said, a great place to live, work, and play, a great place to do business. And a lot of those organizations, whether it's say Riverbank or Ladies and Little, the hospital, whoever it may be, local band, the school, after school program for kids, they're all an integral part of our community. And the business community, hundreds of millions of dollars, something around Summerland, we need the community to be a capable entity that sort of fire on all cylinders.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, I have another question then. When you said in your, I guess it was probably in the introduction, assist business in reopening protocols, is that, tell me how you've gone about that?
So that's just almost all check marks completed already. So again, that was in the dissemination of information. We're checking for these fire hoses every day. So we said, okay, we're open businesses, but the barber shop is different than how they get
Yes.
that before. So we just responded to hundreds of inquiries, and
project ideas that you've had listed, I don't see anything about, the chamber working on the downtown neighborhood plan. And to me, that's kind of a key project, I would think. It just-
There's a ton of things I did list here. I mean, yeah, we've got the new, recreation and community health, projects over the, vibrancy and that kind of place. Any of those, initiatives and projects, that affect the community, business people want to see and plan and make sure we work with circulating notices from the district and work to provide input and
Okay, and then the other, one other question, and this relates to what Councillor Trainer was asking. The data that you're collecting, or that's being collected by Environics, who analyzes that and when is the analysis done?
people a lot smarter than me. So, embryonic that's what they do, right? I mean, so, TELUS brings in the big cell phone data, and they analyze that by, if somebody stopped for 4 hours at 9 o'clock at night, probably like 3 hours per night, and so, they have this whole program, I can share the, how they do it, quite a lengthy list, but they're very good at what they do with their international company. A lot of it is sort of raw data, they dig down, so they use things like, poachers and that, so they surprise them, for example, people in Abbotsford, different things from people in Surrey, though they are geographically very close, the demographics are very, very similar, yet what they're looking for is quite a bit different. So in the market in Surrey, and this is where a lot of the sort of moving line is and that, the market in Surrey, with something there, it has to be different than what you do with Abbotsford or North Vancouver or something. So they do all the analysis for us and boil it down. It's quite a big brother for the just going to the elevator here.
And one final question, under the timing for phase 1, it shows July and August, for needs assessment and program development. Are you thinking that will, move into September as well now?
I
So
hope
we're
that-
mid-August.
I hope to have enough, work with Anthony to have enough pieces to get some of the stuff started. We can't just sit and talk about it, we've gotta get stuff done, and the age-old excuse, well, it's summertime, and, this is a time of crisis, to be honest, this is a time of crisis, and we all know, and we can't just sit down and do this every time, so I've got enough things started and that kind of work, some things that we get something going in September, and I'm still working on gathering ideas and, looking at program delivery, and, even like our education sort of series, disseminating information, we're lining up speakers and trying to coordinate things, and our goal is to make all of this stuff complementary to the, business community, so if anyone is listening.
Okay. Good, thank you very much for answering those questions. Anybody else?
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
I appreciate your attention, and I hope your deliberations the rest of the day go very well.
Thank you so much for your time today,
Thank you.
David. Could I have somebody bring forward this, presentation to receive for information, please? Councillor Burns, Councillor Barkwood. Any further discussion? All in favor then? Thank you. Okay. Now we have item 6, but do we have anybody, to speak?
Madam Mayor, the only speakers are potentially the item 7.1.
Okay, so we'll skip over that then and go straight on to 7.1. The first of our business items, 27410 Garnet Valley Road, water service request for fee waiver. This was deferred from our last meeting of July the 27th, and I will pass this over to Chris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to consider a request to waive the water installation fees for 27.
Could I
full-time-
interrupt you for
Yep.
a second, Chris? I asked the question and then I forgot. Karen, do you know if, Mr. and Mrs. Ramonte are on the line?
Madam Mayor, I don't hear them on the line, and they did submit the additional.
Oh.
They're there.
Yay.
Okay.
first then, Mr. Johnson? Thank you. Could you just hold your comments just 1 minute? Our IT person is trying to get it so that we can hear you better. Oh, that's much better. Everyone can hear all right?
Can you hear stuff?
Just a sec, Ruby.
Testing? Am I clear?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start then. Thank you for spending what we realize is valued time during the July 27 afternoon council meeting to discuss installation of irrigation and domestic services to lot 27410 Garnet Valley. From what we could hear from the discussion that took place during the July 27 meeting, we believe that council acknowledged the following. We do not have immediate access to irrigation services that we have been paying for since 2004. We are wanting to utilize our property in accordance with the zoning of forestry and grazing, and therefore require both irrigation and domestic services. It makes complete sense to install both lines while the water services are closed. There was a window of opportunity for us to install both irrigation and domestic water services to our property during the federally funded Garnet Valley Jones Flat separation project at some cost, albeit at a cheaper cost to the property owners. During the July 27th meeting, we believe we heard from Chris Johnson on more than one occasion that our request to the municipality for water access came in 2018 after the Garnet Valley Jones separation project was completed. We would like to clarify the sequence of events. We reiterate that throughout the Garnet Valley Jones Flat separation project, we were under the impression that we had irrigation services and therefore would have qualified for the federally funded domestic upgrade. Our request to confirm water availability arose coincidentally and after the completion of the separation project in relation to a rezoning request we had made to council in February of 2018. As part of our rezoning application, and as we were attempting to understand council's request to determine water availability to lot 27410 Garnet Valley, we went online and found that the contractors of the separation project, Pyramid Excavation Corporation, had something similar to a 1-year warranty. The site specifically stated, and I'm quoting, "Any deficiencies noted during the maintenance period will be resolved by Pyramid Excavation Corporation in 2018. It was these concerns that got Jake McIstocker to send a crew out on or about February 13, 2018 to confirm that we did indeed have irrigation service on lot 27410 Garnet Valley. We immediately emailed Jake back and asked that he install domestic services through this warranty period, as we thought we could have qualified for domestic installation, and as noted by Councillor Van Alphen during the last council meeting, the onus should have been on the contractor to rectify the discrepancy. Not hearing back from Jake in over 5 months, we sent a follow-up reminder on July 4th, 2018. We received what we perceived to be a generic response from Jake on July 13th, 2018, quote, "The application process to have domestic water service installed to your property on Garnet Valley is usually done at the time of building permit," unquote. Given this 3-year mishap of circumstances and our lost opportunity to be part of or even partially benefit from the fact that irrigation and domestic lines were exposed during the Jones Flat Garnet Valley separation project, our question continues to be who should be responsible for paying for installation of irrigation and domestic services to lot 27410 Garnet Valley. Given the oversight of the Pyramid Excavation contractor, as Summerland Water and Utilities responded to our pleas for access in a timely fashion, we would or should have qualified for the Pyramid warranty in 2018 to correct any deficiencies. Respectfully, Ruby and Daryl Vermont. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grimond-Pray. Chris? Oh, pardon me. Councillor Barco, are you still on the line? Can we get them back? question for, yes.
Madam Mayor, it will take our moderator to phone them back, so it might be a minute or two.
Okay. What's your pleasure? Would you like to wait for them to get back
Yeah, we
on the
can
line?
move on
Get
with
started?
other discussion, I guess, yeah.
Okay, and then we can come back to them. Thanks, Councillor Barclay. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as noted, this report was deferred from the last council meeting to consider a request to waive the installation fees for irrigation, water, and domestic water at 27410 Garnet Valley Road. First, I just want to clarify one item that was brought up by the property owner. They believe the service should have been installed as part of the Garnet Valley project. As noted in February 2018, when the district misinformed them that an irrigation service existed, they stated they should have qualified for a domestic service as part of the project and requested that the district follow up with the contractor to pursue this under warranty under the contract. The district didn't pursue this and they felt that an opportunity was lost to take advantage of the 1-year warranty period. So as stated in my original report, the scope of the project in Garnet Valley did not include installing new services to unserviced properties that may or may not have requested or may or may not request services in the future. So the project included replacing existing connections and reconnecting them to the appropriate water main. The warranty period exists to address deficiencies in the contract work, and it requires the contractor to rectify or repair those deficiencies at their cost within the period. So in our mind and based on the scope of the work and scope of the design and the contract, installing a new service at this property was not part of that work and therefore is not a deficiency and could not be covered under the warranty period. So whether the service was installed in February 2018 or any time between then and now, the cost would be the same as what was presented to the property owner and in the report, and should be the 100% responsibility of the property owner. One question that came up from council last meeting was to determine the cost to install an irrigation service if it was completed as part of the project in 2017. After looking at that, the asphalt costs and the road gravel costs would not be included and attributed to this service because those works were already underway as part of the larger project. So we looked at what the cost of installing a new service to this property under the values that were within that contract, and it was approximately $6,700. So about 80% of the service cost for the irrigation service that the property owner was quoted since then. We also took a look at other water system separation projects where we did similar work and found that there was one other property in Dale Meadows that has a similar situation where they have arable area, don't have an irrigation service, and one was not installed during that project as well back in 2009. Since then, that property owner has requested an irrigation service and is going through the process of having that installed at their cost. So that's a similar situation where there was no consideration for contributing to any of the installation costs for that property. So staff feel that precedent has been set and should be maintained that the district only install services at a reduced rate if the application comes before construction is completed along the frontage of that property. And with that, we stand behind our recommendation that the request for the district to pay for the installation of the water services at this property in Garnet Valley be denied, as they were not requested prior to the project taking place. Also, have any questions?
Karen, are you able to tell us where we're at with the reconnection?
There's no answer
scope of the project was a $6 million plus project to twin the Garnet Valley water system and give domestic water to all property owners.
To install domestic services to all properties that currently have either, well, in that case, it would have been a combination service off of the existing system.
So then every contractor who bid on this project would have got a set of drawings.
Correct.
And at that time, would it not be identified that this lot did not have services?
It would
And they could contact the customers and give them a heads up? But we waited till the project was done, and in the meantime, we hired a engineer, I believe that's the terminology, to oversee the whole project, who was there on site daily. So he's on site daily. It's not like they dug past this property, identified it had no services. They could go back. It's not like they're paving right behind. They could have went back, and, once the customer was contacted saying, oops, like there's no services here, what would you like us to do? And we didn't do that. Like, we just carried on and we paved it, and now, at the time, they may not even have been aware there was no services there. We were tearing up the road, we could have identified it. I don't know what the drawings that went out to the contractors show. Does it show services? Does it not show services? If it doesn't show services, I think we should have done our due diligence. It's the same as land that was being, I don't know what the word is, acquired or whatever to widen the road and to improve it. A lot of people weren't even notified. We just go ahead. They just moved some lot lines and carried on. We still have issues about that in Garnet Valley to this day that haven't been resolved. Like, I think we dropped the ball. And that, I'm not trying to be somewhere, somehow, contractor or engineer on site daily did not notify the correct people to notify the customers that there was an opportunity. If there was an email sent to the customers that said, hey, you got a window of opportunity, we're not gonna pave that section for the next 2 months, do you or do you not want? And if they said no, fine. Now, I understand it should be their cost, but in the meantime, we've collected $10,000 in irrigation fees from these folks without any connection, and we're saying it's gonna cost $6,700 to give them the connections, and I think we should do it at our cost. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Could I just remind everyone to speak really, like, almost swallow your mic? We can hear everyone well in here, but apparently there are some difficulties with YouTube.
Yeah, so if I could just jump in just to comment back. So if, I guess this wasn't part of the scope, so if this was to be captured, it should have been done so in the design period. I don't think it's fair to point to Pyramid or to the engineer on site to say they should have questioned this and brought this up, and we should have raised it with the property owner at that time. And to put some context into this area as well, it's not like it's there's houses on every lot along this residential street, and it was, would have been relatively obvious that this property should have or could have had a service. There's a resident to the south, and then there's a long stretch of undeveloped land, of which this property owner owns 3 parcels. This parcel being, which just has the frontage of their access road, 10 or 20 meters wide, and then 2 larger parcels to the north that had combination services, but don't have any development on them. So if anywhere it was missed, it would have been in the design period to identify all of the properties in Garnet Valley that don't have a service and ask them all if they want a service during this project. And that wasn't part of it all. But that is where it could have been, maybe should have been captured.
Councillor Van Alphen?
Thank you for the follow-up. And I appreciate what you're saying. I truly do. It was something missed. Again, the landowners who own 3 lots, and that one lot, I know specifically what you're talking about, is basically a logging road access, may not have been aware either. So I still believe, like, it was missed water. So it hasn't put any real strain or on our system. We put it in for $6,700. We're still up. We're still ahead of the game. And, like that's the part that, like Councillor Patton said, 5 months for someone to get back to these people, this has been going on for too long. I just feel that we need to look after it and get it dealt with.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. So the 6,700, 80% costs, is that for the irrigation service or the domestic service or both?
Irrigation.
Irrigation, okay. And, but what about the domestic then? What would have been the cost had they done that time of separation?
That I guess it would be, you could assume it's about roughly the same. It's about 80% of what we had quoted.
And I can't find this in the report anywhere. Is it in the report or?
Which, sorry?
Those details. I mean, this is one of the things we asked at the last meeting, is what the cost would have been.
Correct. And so, yeah, when speaking to the corporate officer last week and preparing the agenda and the report, since this report was deferred, it was recommended that this report be brought back as it was with minimal amendments. So the only thing that was struck was the one recommendation that no longer applied, and that any new information be brought forward during the presentation and in the opportunity for council to ask questions and get clarification. So nothing new is added to the report.
Okay, then I think maybe that's a lesson learned for us, because I remember last time we were talking about whether we should actually just defer or make a specific motion asking for the information that we were requesting, and this was one of it. And so I would like, I would have liked to see this, and there were two things we specifically asked for. This was one, and it's escaped my mind what the other one is. So I think we should have made a motion, specifically requesting what we wanted as opposed to just deferring it, because, just getting this kind of information now, I would prefer to be able to read it and look at the justification ahead of time. It seems like we're going around in circles a little bit.
Councillor Warkle?
A lot of good points on every side here. I'm sitting on the fence. Hurts. But I do. I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Holmes said and point to my email this morning. It's a matter of transparency and proper governance that we make a decision based on information that's in the record. And so the additional information that we requested, whether the report was deferred or whether we had a motion, I think should have been presented as an addendum to the original report, so we could not only look at it and think about it and see if there's any additional questions that come from it after looking at it, but so that it's part of the record. That being said, I don't agree with Councillor Patton's comments that we dropped the ball telling them that they had an irrigation service, because this was after the fact, after everything was paved over and done. It really made no difference on what their decision would be. We corrected ourselves, and that was another one of my questions. Like, not that it makes a big difference, but we told them February 13th, 2018 that they had a irrigation connection, and then sometime after that we told them they didn't. And I don't know if it was 5 months later or 2 weeks later or something, but the delay in the response, I agree with Councillor Patton, so that's hard to understand, but it still doesn't make a difference. They didn't have an irrigation district before the work, and they didn't have it afterwards, and so now they have to deal with it. I think part of the delay is them thinking about, well, what are we going to do with this property? So how do you, is it too much of a expectation, is it too much to expect that we would have identified all the properties that didn't have service before this work was done and say you now have an opportunity to get that work done? I guess the design phase was the right time to do that, and we didn't think of it. Nobody thought of it. But how do you reconcile that with the Dale Meadows situation where somebody's going to be paying the full freight? considerations, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe, Chris could, tell us where stage we're at with the Dale Meadows, situation, which is analogous, right? Completely analogous?
Yeah, that project was completed 10 years ago. This property owner in the last year and a half, 2 years has come forward with a development on their site and is looking to have an irrigation service installed, and it's going through that process. Just one point I wanted to make, is that there are other properties in Garnet Valley along this stretch that weren't given, if they didn't have a domestic service, there's a number of properties that are on wells, for instance, and domestic services weren't put in along there, assuming at some point they'd wanna tie in, so I can respect Councillor Van Alphen's questions and comments, I just want to put that out there that there, if we're looking to contribute to this service installation, there may be other services that weren't installed, and if a request comes forward, this similar consideration may need to be given to those situations as well.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson and then Councillor Van Alphen.
I think my question may have just been answered. I was wondering if there were other properties along that don't have domestic services that would have been in a similar situation. It sounds like there are, so that question is no longer necessary. Thank you.
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other concern I have, again, I think they should have all been stubbed to the property line. Sorry, Madam Mayor. They should have all been stubbed to the property line. That's, at the time when you had the road open, is the time to deal with it, because sure, people are on wells. I was on a well. I was fortunate enough that I had a water line to my property. That the curb stop should be there. Like, I may not own that property, or my well may become contaminated, which most are in Garnet Valley now. So, to tear everything apart later, cut pavement, patch, all that type of stuff is ridiculous. While we got things open, spend the money and do it, have it there. Makes sense. But anyways, the other part that I'm sorry, but I'm gonna bring this up as the liaison for council with the water committee. This should have come to the water committee, in my personal opinion. It would have been nice to have some input. How many times we sit around this council table and, we take recommendations from this committee, we take recommendations from this committee, but this never went to the water committee. There would have been, possibly some really good input from the water committee that we're missing here, but, again, I'm not pointing fingers, that's not why I'm here. I just want something that's fair to the landowners, especially in lieu of the amount of time this is taking. And again, that could go both ways. As staff and a landowner, I'm not blaming anybody, but let's just resolve it and get on with it.
Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to respond to Councillor Barklow in regards to the misinformation. That if I asked a question and it came back and it said, yes, you do, then as far as I'm concerned in my head, I don't need to pursue it anymore because I know I have it. So, yes, I agree with you on some extent, but in this case, I think that the information that was supplied put our citizens' mind at ease, and there was no further interest that they had to pursue it if they already had the service that was available to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Alphen. Sorry, Councillor Patton. Well, you're both men.
Two legs, two arms, that's about it.
That's right. I have one question. It gets back to the costs. In their report, it talks about the 80-24-43, and 80% of that was the kind of the asphalt part taken out of it, was 6,700.
Correct.
And so the 80-24-43, that would be kind of the total cost to put a curb stop in there so that they could access irrigation.
That's the total cost to install an irrigation service to that property, including the meter pit and the meter pit, yes.
Including the meter pit and the meter?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the 6,700, that would have been if it was done in 2017 under the contract.
Yes.
Is a comparable number for those items. For the service, the meter pit, the meter.
And so if it had been done in 2017, the applicant would have been charged the 6,700?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Because that item still, it includes the 10 meters from the pipe to their service, to their property line, where the service line would have been, as well as the pit and the meter associated with it, and the cost to tie into the existing main.
Okay. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, and just for clarification, the property owners only assumed they had an irrigation service, correct? They didn't assume that they had a domestic service?
Correct. When they were told that they had an irrigation service, that's when they requested that a domestic service be installed, or that it should have been installed as part of the project as well, because they believe they qualified.
And they've only been paying for irrigation, they haven't been paying a domestic water bill
They've been,
for something they don't have?
they've been paying for 5 acres of arable area.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
The 5 acres, is that what's referred to in the report, or it wasn't in the report, I think it was in a piece of the correspondence as the 5 units? There's a mention of 5 units in there. Does that
Yep.
mean the 5? Okay, thank you. No, that's not, I have another question that was there. Any other questions? Councillor Barco?
Yes, in reference to my friend and colleague, Councillor Patton's comments, it does show in the record that on February 13th that we advised them that they had an irrigation service. Sometime afterwards, and this may be relevant to Councillor Patton's feeling on our obligations. When was this corrected? 1 month later, 1 week later? Do we know?
Based on the correspondence, it appeared that in September 2019, it was still uncertain what they had. And I don't know what transpired between July 2018 and a year later in September 2019. But it was confirmed sometime between September and November of 2019. It was in November when they received the estimate for the irrigation service installation costs.
Okay, so they assumed that they had irrigation service until they received the bill for the installation of the irrigation service that they assumed they already had?
Yeah, it was, that's my understanding, is that, I don't know if it was in question or when it was raised or when it was brought forward, like I said, between February 2018 and September 2019, but it was in the fall of 2019 when it was confirmed and they were provided the estimate for the irrigation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question through our head of Public Works. So if I have arable acres and there's a curb stop at my property, and if I want you to install a blue box, there's no cost to the farmer, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay, but if I want a pit meter, that's something specialized, and the pit meter will get paid for. I have to pay for the pit meter.
I believe so, that's, cause that'll, and the reason for the pit meter is that allows you for year-round use.
Correct.
For grazing or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Okay, so, I'll take back what I said earlier. I think we should do this at no cost, but they pay for the pit meter.
Councillor Trainer?
When you say no cost, do you mean the entire project, like domestic as well, or just the irrigation?
No, domestic also, like, this was the project, $6 million plus. Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
No,
No, you're responding.
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
No, that was the scope of the project, $6 million plus to supply domestic water to all the homes in Garnet Valley, like all the lots in Garnet Valley. That's why we got the grant. So, it should have been should have been at least to the property line.
Of course. So back when this project was designed, was it, I guess it wasn't in the work order or just things to do to go through each property and see which, to see like an inventory kind of what properties were along there and had what, that wasn't really part of the scope, it was only to look at what was currently there.
It was to separate the two systems, so any existing domestic services that came off of the single line would be, there would be a new service installed and it would be attached to the new domestic line, or vice versa, because the existing irrigation line, for a stretch, it's now the domestic, and for a stretch, it's still the irrigation. So, just to clarify though, for this property, even if it had an existing irrigation service, we would not have put in a domestic service. And there are a number of properties that only had an irrigation service, that still only have an irrigation service, or that have had no services and don't have any services. Because it's undeveloped, we would need to know what was going on there for a development to qualify for a domestic service, hence the building permit application process that was referenced in that correspondence. So it would need to go through that process to determine if it warranted domestic service.
So even if the homeowner wanted domestic at the time, it wouldn't necessarily happen because they wouldn't have to show plans for domestic some kind of property?
If it happened during the project or prior to the project occurring, construction occurring, then it would have, we would have had to confirm and would have tried to get that answer and determined to make it happen during construction. If it came in February, at the time of the other request, then we would be in the same situation now, where it wouldn't have been installed and it wouldn't be a deficiency of the project.
Okay, so that's Councillor Trainer, and then Councillor Carlson, followed by Councillor Barkle.
Thank you. It's just in response to Councillor Van Alphen, because I appreciate that it makes a lot of sense. However, it also is something, if we're gonna go pave Quinpool Road, which happened very recently. But one can't assume that all of those lots that are potentially duplexes or townhouses in the future have had that service installed under that road, because that hasn't happened yet. And so for the district to assume before something is requested, before something happens, that it should be there, I think is not fair. And so, putting in a domestic service for something that doesn't require a domestic service doesn't make any sense, because it might sit there for the next 100 years. And so there's a pipe there which has nice clean water, and those people are entitled to get it, but they also, they don't need it until they have a house or a reason to have it there. Excuse me, so I get it, but I also don't get it.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Barkle.
Yeah, originally, I just wanted to clear up what the scope of the project was, but I think that Councillor Trainer has done that for me. And I think that there has to be an onus on a taxpayer, and Councillor Carlson's comments sort of raised this in my mind. There has to be an onus on the taxpayer to know what services he has and to or doesn't have. And the onus, I think, is on them to take advantage of any opportunities that may or may not come along. It would be nice if the district was proactive in that way, but I see huge complications with the huge numbers of different possibilities of properties. So when we do these roadworks, it's left to the responsibility of the property owner to see if there's any new opportunities coming along, whatever the service may be, power, water, gas, sewer. The homeowners got to be alert to their own level of service and what they may or may want and what their plans, and only they know what their plans are in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Barkle. Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't argue with Councillor Carlson. And according to our head of our planning department, Public Works, as our bylaw says, you can't give them domestic until you know what the building permit states. I think at this point in time, the obligation, I think box, if they want a blue box, that's included. But a pit meter is additional, and I understand that, but I think we should at least eat the cost of the agricultural water hookup for them, and like I say, domestic's a whole different story. You know, I do appreciate what you're saying. The part that drives me mental, and it's like Garnet Valley, it's like Quinpool Road, it's like any other roads we're gonna do in the future. Giants Head will be another one. A week after it's paved, hey, I need a new connection. And we cut the road all up and we start all over again. You know, and that's what's gonna happen out in Garnet Valley. You know, we just keep cutting again. Like I say, at the time, when the road's all tore up, to bring it to the property line isn't the end of the world. It'd be cheaper to do it that way than dig them up later and repatch roads all over the place. That's the only thing, you know, maybe it's something we can look at for the future, like, you know, but this was grant money. This wasn't coming out of our bank account here at City Hall. This was coming out of grant money to supply domestic water. So, anyways, I would like, sorry, I'll wait.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just to clarify that, you know, I've heard a number of times this federal money, it's actually 1/3 federal, 1/3 provincial, and 1/3 district. So it does come out of our money. To me, I think, you know, after listening to all the discussion, I can't see any reason for the domestic one to be, for anything to be waived there. I think what you have to go back for the agricultural irrigation is, you know, had they been given the information right from the outset, what would the costs to them have been? And it would have been, and had they decided to install it, it would have been 80% of the cost. So I would lean towards denying the domestic request, but setting the agricultural at 80%. And as was said before about the paying for the 5 acres, they would be paying for that anyway.
Would you like to bring a motion forward, Councillor Holmes?
Councillor Barkle had a question.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Councillor Holmes, you said if they'd been given the accurate information at the outset, but there's no information that we have that they made any inquiries prior to the work completion. So at the outset to me means that if they had been given inaccurate information or made the assumption that they had the connection because they'd made an inquiry prior to the work being done, is a different case than making an inquiry after the work's completed and then finding out that there isn't that connection. So when you say at the outset, what period of time, what point are you referring to? I mean, maybe the listing agreement said there was an irrigation service, but it probably just said, you know, 5 acres of water rights. And, you know, that's not our responsibility.
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to that, I feel we had an obligation during the engineering phase. As, you know, we're going through the engineering, we're doing the plans, we're drawing this up to notify people that may not have been aware of what they have or what they do not have. You know, and I think people should have been made aware. Like, if you got a well, do you want to hook up or don't you? No, I do not. Or yes, I would, because I plan on switching in the future. You know, so I mean, I think that some responsibility lays on us to give the people, the taxpayers, the information up front, not after. You know, after the fact, going, oh, you know, it's going to cost you X.
Rebuttal?
Well, I know actually an agreement, it drives me nuts as well. As soon as you get a road paved, somebody's digging it up for something. So I agree that maybe we could be more proactive, but certainly do think we should all keep that in mind, before we do the next project. Maybe it'll be Giant's Head Road. That we make that effort to contact everybody so we minimize any road dig-ups. But, you know, it wasn't done, and it's never been done in the past, and so we're with this situation now.
Councillor Trainer?
And I think that if we're gonna do a project,
Use your mic,
that we
please.
would have to give direction to make sure that we're clear from the very beginning that that's something that we want included. I don't think that was included last time. It was just an oversight, and it wasn't part of the scope, as Chris said. So I think it's a lesson learned. There's no point in really arguing it too much. Just learn from it, and like I said, Garnet or Giant's Head, make sure if that's what we want done, we want everybody notified, then we make sure that that's in the work order.
I think I read in the correspondence or the staff report that there were 3 open houses in advance of the work beginning there to talk about the project.
Yeah, there were 3 held in 2016.
2016. So conceivably at that point, the Remontres could have come forward and expressed interest in either or both of the both domestic and irrigation systems. Is that that's correct? Okay. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Were they living in Summerland at the time? Were they notified of the 3 public hearings?
I have no idea.
I would have to check to confirm this, but I believe the invitations were mailed out to all the property owners. So if they were listed as a property owner, then an invitation would have went out to whatever address they had on file.
Okay, I have one other question. Chris, it says in the report that although it was withdrawn, there was a rezoning application, and it included a water service request for a grazing leaseman for fire suppression. What was the rezoning? Do you remember? Because it makes me think it was coming from forestry grazing to something else.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. I'm just checking the correspondence to see if I can find it.
I believe, Madam Mayor, that it was agricultural for a cannabis facility. It was what the original application was.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't see it here offhand.
Okay, the reason I was asking that question is I'm wondering about the need for domestic water. If you're not building a house there.
My understanding is that that has come up in the recent discussions with Norrish Enterprises and,
Okay.
and the property owner about just the efficiencies of putting in a domestic while we have the road opened up for
Okay,
irrigation.
understand.
But yeah, I don't think that's all I believe. It was just a verbal request that had come through, and then there was a request to provide an estimate, but I don't think it's linked to a rezoning application or anything at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody interested in bringing forward Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, that the request from the property owners of 27410 Granite Valley Road to have district install a irrigation water service to this property at no cost be approved, and that the owners of 27410 are responsible for the cost of a pit meter.
So So that would be installation of the pit meter as well, like everything involved with getting a pit meter installed there? Just the physical piece? Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder, Councillor Patton? Okay, discussion on this? Councillor Holmes?
How much is a pit meter?
So looking at the contract prices, the lump sum of the pit meter was $2,300.
Councillor Carlson?
And was that included in the original quote of 8,000 plus for irrigation?
Yes.
Okay.
Further?
So the motion that was made is only around irrigation water service. What, and you did that on purpose, I understand. I just wonder if, how do you put the domestic into that, Mr. Van Alphen, as your, if it's, there's a cost to install a domestic service as well?
I agree. The cost from what we've been instructed this afternoon, for them to put in a domestic system, they would have to have a building permit or a development permit of some sort, if I'm not mistaken. Or they have to negotiate with Public Works while the road is open, if that's something that's acceptable at this time. So if the road gets opened up to put in the irrigation system and you have to go further to hook in the domestic system, they're responsible for that. So, but that's between, but apparently from what I'm gathering here today is they have no right to a domestic system because they don't have a development permit.
At this point, in looking at the rezoning application from February, it was from forestry or from grazing to A2, so to farm agricultural use. So I'd have to confirm with development services what that means for a domestic service standpoint. But if they are looking to pursue the irrigation service, then we would confirm prior to if the domestic service was applicable and if they wanted to pursue that as well.
Councillor Holmes?
Yes, thanks. I'd just like to ask this Councillor Van Alphen to just maybe explain the rationale for waiving the costs of irrigation service. I don't quite understand. I do understand why the farmer may pay for a pit meter to pay the costs, but without revisiting the whole conversation again.
My feelings were that this, again, we're over 2 years now with this customer, and it's unacceptable. They were told that there was a curb stop, then they were told there wasn't a curb stop. The road was open. It was all open, and they could have been notified at that time that there was no irrigation. They've been charged for 5 arable acres for X amount of years, and paid it with no concerns. I think it's the least we could do for these residents of Summerland, to be honest with you.
Yes, follow up, and then Councillor Barton.
So if they were told at the time there was no irrigation, they would have had to pay. So now they're just saying that they don't have to pay.
They were told it was there. No, not at the time that the road was done, but while they're digging up the road, you think it should have been identified, you don't have domestic and you don't have irrigation, meanwhile you paid for 5 acres of arable land, that you have no access to water. That's where I'm having my difficulties.
Councillor Barkla?
So, how do you, Councillor Van Alphen, and I kind of have to say there is both sides, but you got to take a position. How do you reconcile that with all the other locations in town that may need connections? That there's lots of connections. There's domestic connections on Granite Valley that could be more irrigation. have a irrigation allocation who were willing to purchase one and say, why didn't you put in a connection knowing I might wanna, buy in the future? And there's a lot of situations out there, and if we wanna be consistent.
Any further discussion? Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, I just think if they were told at the time that had no irrigation and they wanted irrigation, then, the most I could say is, well, then let's charge them with what they would have been charged at the time. Or I also understand why we shouldn't even do that. So I would either go for 80% or flat out denial. I can't support this motion.
Any further discussion? Could I have you read what's on the floor again, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the request from the property owners of 27410 Garnet Valley Road to have the district install an irrigation water service to this property at no cost be approved, and that the owners at 27410 Garnet Valley Road be responsible for the cost of the pit meter.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? So that is defeated. That motion is defeated. Anyone else? Councillor Barkle.
For the sake of discussion, I'll put forward a motion that we install the meter for 80% of the cost, which is the approximate cost if they'd been notified and had the opportunity to do it at the time. The irrigation.
Irrigation
Yeah.
water. So the 6,700 that Mr. Johnson was telling us about. So Karen, once you have had a minute to formulate that.
Okay, so, that the request from the property owners of 27410 Garnet Valley Road to have the district install a domestic and an irrigation water service to this property be approved with a cost of $6,700 to owner and the district installation to cover the rest of the cost.
I think I heard you say domestic in there as well?
Just irrigation.
Just irrigation. Okay, good. Okay, seconder? Or do you want it to be, or are you okay with that, Councillor
I have
Barkle?
a question regarding the cost that we were given. Now, that was for the installation. They wanted a pit meter. We've talked a lot about a pit meter. Is that part of the request?
Yes, the 6,700 includes the pit meter.
Okay.
Did you want it read again, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, could I have somebody second then, please? Councillor Holmes, and further discussion on this new motion. Councillor Holmes.
But if it was done at the time when it was included in the fees,
Yeah, so these costs are 3 contract line items from the 2017 contract with Pyramid. The only items that I removed were the asphalt and the road gravel. So this includes the service line, the connection to the existing main, including the saddle, corporation stop and curb stop, and the meter pit associated pipe.
All right, I don't see any hands raised, so I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. On to, oh, pardon me, Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm grateful that this is gonna happen. I hope that, maybe we could contact them as soon as possible and maybe give them some type of window of opportunity when this may be able to happen. The big part of this is, and I know we really didn't discuss it today, but the big part of this for a lot of the residents in Garnet Valley is fire mitigation. You know, it's 70-something acres. 5 acres of arable water, you know, an irrigation cannon can make a big difference for a lot of neighbors. And, you know, we've had some pretty tragic summers out there over the past, and having water up to that 72 acres is really important, you know, for grazing or what have you, but definitely fire mitigation in the future. And I know they've done a ton of fire mitigation work up there in conjunction with our fire department, giving them some consultation on that. So they, you know, cleaning up and getting rid of slash, you know, that type of thing. So I'm grateful to see that there's the ability to get water up there today. Thank you.
Good. Very good point, Councillor Remington. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. On to 7.2, Parks and Recreation reopening update. And I welcome Joanne Millar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Switching gears to Recreation, Parks and Recreation. The purpose of this report is to receive an update on Parks and Recreation reopening plans, including the reopening of the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center. A few highlights: the Arts Center opened on June 22nd. The Farmers Market has been operating out of the arena parking lot on Sunday morning since June 28th. Outdoor fitness programs are currently underway in local parks for July and August. The Summerland Arena opened on July 13th and is achieving the revenue and booking targets. The museum opened on July 15th. Center Stage Theatre opened on July 16th for select small bookings. The Peach Orchard Beach Spray Park opened on July 17th. And the first equestrian booking at the rodeo grounds is scheduled for August 15th. Staff are currently preparing for the reopening of the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center on September 8th. Staff recertifications will be scheduled for the week of August 24th, and staff training sessions will be scheduled for the week of August 31st. Staff are developing a phased approach to reopening the building in order to carefully monitor the activities and ensure safety of the patrons and staff. Phase 1 will include reduced hours of operations, reduced activities, reduced number of participants, dedicated time slots for participation, scheduled 15-minute buffer between time slots, online pre-registration required for fitness room and pool use, no drop-ins, and a midday shutdown for enhanced cleaning protocols. The dates for Phase 1 are September 8th to October 11th, 2020. The hours of operation will be Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The activities are 1 hour pre-registration time slots to access the fitness room, 1 hour pre-registered time slots for lane swimming and aquafit classes, pre-registered time slots for public swim sessions, dedicated pool bookings, times for Orca Swim Club and Master Swim Club. Restrictions are no pool bookings, rental bookings except for swim clubs, no swim lessons, no special events, and no school bookings. And that's for Phase 1. Considerations: online pre-registration for fitness room and pool, limited registration per session, enhanced cleaning protocols, changes to flow of people through the building, i.e. direct access to pool deck from the lobby and exit through the change rooms, pre-registration at drop-in rate for the pool and fitness room, and COVID-19 informed consent waiver required. Indoor recreation programs will be offered at select facilities and will include COVID-19 safety protocols, and all participants will be required to complete a COVID-19 informed consent waiver form. Recreation programs and services will be promoted through a digital recreation guide, which can be updated and when required. No printing copies and no mail out. Recreation program registration will be available online and phone-in starting on September 1st. In-person registration for recreation programs available Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. starting September 8th. Staff are targeted Phase 2 to be implemented after the Thanksgiving weekend on October 13th, which, pending the evaluation of Phase 1, may include expanded hours of operation, increased participation levels, modified swim lessons, school swim sessions, public pool rental opportunities with a COVID safety plan. All plans are subject to change depending on new orders, directives, and guidelines issued from the Public Health Office and other regulating organizations. As per financial implications, the amended budget reflects the Aquatic and Fitness Center being closed from mid-March until the beginning of September. Due to COVID-19, staff are expecting a reduction in participation levels and revenues in the fall. The Director of Finance included a reduction of 20% of recreation revenues from September to December 2020 in his most recent projections that were presented to Council on the July 13th regular Council meeting. More detailed budget projections for 2020 year-end will be prepared in the fall and may require an additional budget amendment. Should a second wave of COVID-19 require the closure of recreation facilities, including the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center, this will require further amendments to the budget. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Councillor Barkle. And then Van Alphen.
I assume these are all according to provincial guidelines, which makes it easier and less stressful if you just say you're following it. But there's one aspect that I always wondered about, and for retail and other businesses and this is, why do you have restricted hours? Doesn't that mean you're trying to, more people are going to crowd into a shorter time period than if you offered a longer day?
So what we're doing is it's a bit of both. We're reducing the number of people that are going to be coming in at certain times because we're setting a limit, especially in Phase 1 will be smaller to how many people for a 1 hour booking, for example, will be allowed to go to the fitness center. And for a 1 hour, for example, lane swim, for Phase 1 we're doing it very conservative just to make sure everyone's flow is understood, safety for the patrons and the staff is understood. But we didn't go straight to full hours just to make sure we're really comfortable with the flow of things and that we're doing it well. And then after Phase 1, the Phase 1 is just 5 weeks that we're projecting, and then after that we can increase to full hours. A lot of it is staffing as well, and do we need, if we're not running at full capacity, the full hours, right? And so they're very close actually. It's not like we've cut it down by half, but from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. is still pretty close to our full hours. So, but it reduced slightly.
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So September 8th, is that the soonest you can start booking, like for the recreation or the weight room?
Yes, so September 8th will be our opening date. The fall recreation guide will be online September 1st, so people could start booking. For example, there is a 7 a.m. gym time, and we're putting 15-minute buffers between the 1 hour sessions. So there's a 7 a.m. gym time. The next one will be 8:15 a.m. So on September 1st, theoretically, anyone could go online and book the 7 o'clock time slot for the gym, and the following week they want to book the 8:15 time slot. So it will be starting on September 1st.
And do like really old people like me get first shot or what?
Yeah, everyone's so savvy now on the computer. I think nowadays with COVID, right, everyone's been turning to online. So, but also during our Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., people can call in to book that way when our staff is there to answer the phone. So that's the second option.
Perfect. And a follow-up question, if I may. I know we purchased some outdoor gym equipment, and I think it's sitting in storage somewhere. Is that going to get installed this year?
Yeah, so if you'd like me to speak a little bit to this, we are very, very close to installation, and there's just been a little bit of a setback because now I think there's one other project happening simultaneously near the location with the the charging stations, and it's right at the same location where we're installing. So we are ready to go as soon as that project is done, and then we can lay out and everything. But it's just bad timing that the two are right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask a couple questions about the arena. So did all the hockey camps that we were expecting book?
I know that the targeted projections for revenue that we needed and that we wanted, we've met that.
ones that we knew wanted to come have come, but there might have been a little bit of changes around there. I know the one day with the fire, for example, people couldn't get through and they had to cancel. So there's been a bit of change, but generally it's been a great process of solidifying everyone that wanted to come in.
Okay. Good. And then come September, I noticed in the report it says it depends on the updated guidelines, but what if there aren't any? What if nothing changes? And are user groups, I know right now for the summer there's very limited how many kids we can have on the city contact. So what if there's no change?
Well, I think one thing that we're doing is we're reevaluating constantly, and there's always high demand on our arena ice time. It's been, there's not enough ice time in the Okanagan really, so our facility has been quite utilized. So one of the things we'll be looking at is public skate eventually, and again, depending on how the pandemic's going and people's comfort level, of coming in for public skates and different sport organizations, everything's getting updated all the time. What's allowed and the flow of the pandemic and if it's getting better or worse, right? So, especially the provincial sport organizations, they're also evolving all the time as the pandemic goes, but I've not heard from a recreation manager that that's been an issue that they're fearful of.
Oh, you have another question? Okay.
Just regarding Giant's Head Mountain, and are there any plans to open the gate?
I know it was purposely closed to try to reduce, for COVID-19, the amount of people gathering, the flow of it. I've not heard that there's going to be a change to open it for the summer. But I'm sure that's something that could be discussed with the recreation manager if there's a need to do it.
I know there's a rec committee meeting coming up. If you'd like to develop the rec committee, I think there's a lot of people up there from Canada. I think about that now. Who like to go up there with the local group in the community and to have it not accessible to them for the whole summer to fit on there.
That's definitely something that could be brought up at the meeting. And another consideration with our mountain and access has always been fire season as well, and often in the summer we end up closing it down for fire safety, so I think there's a little bit of a balance to be discussed about that for sure.
Councillor Van Alphen, did you have? No.
Sorry.
Yeah, you were just reacting to his, yes.
Yeah, it was a comment directed at me.
Following up on Councillor Holmes's question, I'm up on Giant's Head Mountain several times a week now, and there are so many people that say, please keep that gate closed, because there's so many people going up, and I recognize the concern with not everybody has the mobility to get up Giant's Head. It's kind of, weighing it out, isn't it?
Yes, and I should mention too that we were also following a lot of the similar protocols of Knox Mountain and Kelowna that has
Yes.
also shut it down, so it's sort of a regional decision making at this time, and until our numbers for COVID-19 get a lot better, do we want to change that?
I have questions specifically about the recreation or the pool and fitness center.
Sure.
When you say no pool rental bookings except swim clubs, does that include the RECOPE program?
So they will be allowed to book. It's more, that should have been more for private parties.
Okay.
Yeah, so user
Like
groups.
birthday parties and things like
Correct,
that.
yeah. So user groups and public sport organizations would have precedence. So yeah, RECOPE would be.
Good.
They personally are going to wait a little bit before they start using the facility. They have a
Yeah,
lot
I can understand that. They tend to be a more vulnerable population anyways. And then I was just wondering if your protocols include I have my thoughts, but do they include, access to the sauna and the hot tub?
Very good question. So we are going to close the sauna.
Yes.
And we're gonna also close the hot tub.
Okay.
There's a lot of recommendations and guidelines from Life Saving Society and Interior Health, and we could, if we want, some places may want to open their hot tub, but they are recommending, especially smaller hot tubs, to close. So we're comfortable, especially for phase 1, to have those two closed.
Okay, thank you. And then a question about the staffing. With September 8th, with that opening, well, I guess in advance of that, so you can get ready, does that mean all full-time staff will be back?
Yes, so we have 2 full-time staff.
Okay.
Actually, our 1 full-time staff started back today, and our second one is scheduled to start back at the end of the month. And then the remaining of our staff are part-time and on-call staff. So we're going to be making sure everyone's certifications are up, and there's a lot of new requirements for COVID-19 for everyone to be trained on. So we're going to be doing that intensive training and all of our recertifications ahead.
So when you say, even for phase 1 and the, well, kind of limited hours, that will include, the part-time staff coming back as well?
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then I just had one question, and this came out of, Councillor Van Elfen's question about, reserving online or registering online. They can also pay online, correct?
Yes, so what we're trying to prevent and what's recommended is we don't want to build up of people in our lobby. And as you all know, there's occupancy limits in every space. So it's going to look very different. Our lobby, where it used to be a sort of a central hub of socializing, which is great, it's not going to be that anymore. And we're not going to allow people just to walk into the facility and drop in for a swim. It all has to be pre-registered and prepaid for. So our staff actually working there are not going to be handling money. There's not going to be a lineup. So there'll be a bit of public education ahead of time to make sure people know that process, or to call in during office hours. But we need to really reduce our lineups for everybody's safety.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question. It's a little bit out of scope of this discussion, but we've heard from the primary care network people in Interior Health that one of the things they have to change is how they allocate space during the pandemic to make sure that people are not seeking health services and putting themselves in danger, whether it's a doctor's office or whatever it is. I'm wondering if there also will be, because, you know, who knows how long it'll be before we get out of this, or when something else will come up, if there is also consideration during the, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Haddad, I'm not sure, during the, and I know we're not there yet, but the design of the Summerland Recreation and Health Center, if all of that will be brought into consideration as well.
Through the chair, Madam Mayor, I think through the first phase of the consultation process that is just about to begin, all those groups are at the table. I think you're going to see a lot of those discussions had. I think towards the end of this year, we're going to have a good understanding of what the needs are for that facility, and really get into a better understanding of how they can all coexist. And the next question will be trying to fund it. So we'll eventually get to that question, but the first piece is really getting a good understanding of the needs that the community want, but also from the stakeholders, which, as you mentioned, will be included in that process.
Good. Yeah, you're right. Everyone's eyes is really open during this pandemic of traffic flow and preparing for our new future, and we hope it doesn't last long, but to be in a new build designed well.
Yeah, absolutely. Resilience, right? Okay, those are all the questions I had. Anyone else? Any questions? All right, could I have someone bring forward the motion to bring this, receive it for information? Councillor Van Elfen? Councillor Holmes? Any further discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. We have one more item before we go into closed, and that is the UBCM 2020 meetings. I think this is for you, Mr. Haddad.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just a brief report looking at getting council direction on a draft resolution that's being brought forward with regards to initial UBCM meeting brought forward for Council's consideration. The request is the Council support the recommendation that Council add to the resolution of Council on July 20th, 2020 regarding the UBCM 2020 meeting request with the provincial representatives with the following additional item, which is community conversations on racism with regards to the Ministry of Citizen Services. So that resolution will support the additional meetings that are outlined in the report that have been sent off. I should note that we have sent off the request to the Ministry, given the deadline of August 4th for the submissions to be sent through. So we're just looking to formalise that with the Council resolution, and we'll hope to hear back from the ministries over the next few weeks, and hopefully we get all our meetings. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So the resolution is just to add that one additional item?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Haddad? Okay. So could I ask someone to bring forward that resolution? Councillor Carlson, and seconded by Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Question?
While we're on the topic of UBCM meetings, I'm just wondering if we have the sort of a, what's it gonna look like? Is council gonna be here and we'll have a conversation over phone? And also, more to that, when we actually have UBCM sessions, is it gonna be similar? Will all council be together? Or is just looking at what the flexibility or not flexibility is so I can plan my September?
Certainly. So from the information that we have seen online and been notified by the Ministry, or the province, the conversations or the meetings will be virtual. We will have conference calls for each of the minister meetings or staff meetings on each of the topics that we're allowed to meet with them on, and then the convention itself will be virtual. So I assume there'll be some webinars. So we will hope to get all of council in the room to watch them online, or split up if there's a couple of different sessions that council want to attend at the same time.
We'll also be having the SILGA AGM during the UBCM.
Coming over?
Okay, I don't believe there is anybody else for item 8. Karen? No more public comment? Or
There
maybe-
was no one pre-registered, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, if I could have someone bring forward the resolution to close the meeting to the public, and then we're going to take a short break. Councillor Van Elfen,